Welcome everyone. Thank you for being in this room. So we're going to talk about different stages of indie journey. For that, we have three amazing guys here. All the three are in different stages of their indie journey. Um, I'm sure most of you guys are working on your own games and you're planning to do that, go solo indie, right? I'm just hoping that with this panel, we can give you some tips, some learnings of our own at different stages, so that you can implement those things and learn out of it. So to begin with, I'll just ask three of you guys to give a quick introduction about you and what kind of games that you're making to the audience.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction. So I decided I had to be a game designer when I was 14 years old. So from that point, I kind of went under self-practice and self-learning. And a couple of years back, I opened a studio called Outlier Games. So over there, we are working on our first game called Deliverance. It's a linear third-person action adventure set in fictional ancient India, kind of like a superhero story. So that's what we are working on at the moment. And I consult with the central and state governments to form policies for video game industry. So that's what I'm doing.
Hi, I'm the founder of this indie studio called Playbae Games. We focus on creating innovative experiences that can push the boundaries of imagination in video games. And currently, like you might be knowing me and Playbae from the game called In My Shadow, which was an award-winning game that was released last year on almost all the major platforms. And now we're looking to build upon that, all of those learnings and build a studio out of it. And really looking forward to connect with every indie developer that I can.
Hey everyone, my name is Himanshu. I founded Xigma Games back in 2015. Back then I was just a solo developer, and now we are 8 people team. We are a small indie studio based out of Bangalore, and we have released a game called The Bonfire for Second Lands and The Bonfire 2 Uncharted shows. Both of them won multiple awards and were featured worldwide, globally on the App Store and Google Play Store. Currently, we are making a new game called Metal Haven. Yeah, that's pretty much.
Thank you, guys. Quickly to start with, I just want to know there are multiple ways to get into the gaming industry. You work for a company, grow in that company, then start a company and all that stuff, right? What is that one kick? What is that one kick that made you or pushed you to this journey to go solo and consistently work towards making your own games with all the ups and downs that you have? I would like to start with Himanshu because probably you've gone through a lot compared to Nakul and Harish. So just give us some background on that.
Yeah, so the story goes way back when I was 6 years old. My parents bought me my first Nintendo, and whatever inherent quality this early interactive entertainment media possessed, it hooked me, and I was possessed. Gaming is all I have done all my life, and after my college, fortunately, I've joined as a game programmer. But whatever games I was making over there, I wasn't happy. I wasn't content because I thought that the quality of games can be a lot better from India, and we should make for the global market, and we should not just focus ourselves or content ourselves to a single demographic. Or no offense to Teen Patti guys, but we should not make games like, you get my point. So that's when I decided to quit my job, and I went on to this journey, and I started an indie studio. So yeah, that was my sole reason. I wasn't happy with the content that I was doing, and I wanted to bring back the same joy, give back to the community that I grew up playing, that I grew up with playing those games.
Thank you, Himanshu. Nakul?
Yeah, so I have a very similar story to most of you guys. Like, I have been one of those children who used to love games and wanted to have a career in games. But it was so obviously I did manage to get a career in games, but I like never had this experience of indie games in general. So I had this kick moment that you were just talking about when I was playing a few indie games, and I remember Limbo being one of them, where I realized that this is purely a form of art. Like, I always used to play games as just form of entertainment, but Limbo made me realize that this is a pure artistic form of entertainment, and that's where I got my kick from. That I should also make something that is creative, is innovative, and so that I can kind of push my and like share my curiosities with the world in the form of games. And even when my company, I or we are not there in the scene, my games would always live. So that was the kick.
Thank you. Harish?
So for me, the moment was I love stories, and what I love more than this is telling stories. And I grew up on this single player games actually. So when I looked around in the market at that time, this is like 2010, 2011, 12, such games weren't made in India. So I was the learning phase at that time, and I decided when I enter the industry, that is the kind of games that I should be working on. That is the medium in which I want to tell stories. So I picked it up from there. There were a lot of great games that kept inspiring me to get there. So that was my push factor as to what is the why behind Outlier Games, wherein our thesis at our studio is to make games that are thought provoking but also emotionally resonant. So that is what drives us at Outlier Games. That is what we strive to make. So coming from that route, I think that was my kick, and that's how I started the studio.
Awesome. All three of you guys spoke about making what you like, making what you love. You played certain kind of games, and then you wanted to create such magical games for the audience, right? But I'm sure in this journey, right, when you're doing something of your own and there's not a great support behind in terms of financial stability as well, right? Um, are there any challenges that you face? Because let me frame it in a different way, because when you are in indie, there are challenges. So let me just ask you in this way: what are your challenges at different stages? You being a quite new to the scene, you published one game which has done really well. Now you have certain different things in your mind, with new projects and then you have already done a couple of games, right? What are the challenges that you guys are facing at this stage of your journey? Harish, do you want to start?
Sure. So probably a lot of you people will relate with this as an aspiring indie game dev. So when we get into this field, probably at this phase, the biggest challenge is funding, or more so the lack of it. So that would form the basis. So what I mean by that is you can't have full-time team members working for you on your game, and that is a big challenge. And all these people have gone through it, and now they have gone to the next stage of their challenges. So it is evolution of challenges. So for me, what that means is all my team members are working full time elsewhere, and evenings and weekends is what they do at Outlier Games. So therein there's a productivity problem, wherein they're focusing on two different things. Sometimes there is a burnout. Sometimes there is a crunch going on in their day job. That means I can't get them for a while till that crunch gets over. So the production of the game at this stage before a publisher or a funding comes in will be on and off, or it'll be slow, or it'll have go through peaks and valleys. So we had to implement some, but then again, I'll come back to it when we talk about learnings. But at the moment, I think the biggest challenge would be the problem that arises because of lack of funding, which means you can't have full-time team members and all the other productivity related things that surrounding it. Yeah.
Nakul?
Since Harish just mentioned about like the evolution of challenges, that kind of brings me to this point that the entire game dev journey is like a game itself, and there are levels. So he's in level 1, level 2, level 10. So you're gonna face a lot of boss stages in all these levels, a lot of small enemies in these levels, and you definitely have lives which are equivalent to your persistence, your perseverance. Uh, so I definitely faced all of these challenges that Harish just mentioned. In fact, I can almost recall all of them. Feels like a past journey to the past. But in that journey, which Harish has been experiencing right now, I learned a lot of things. Right now, for at this stage when I've released a game and like moving on from that, uh, my main priority is to not to repeat the mistakes that I made in those journey, because you're definitely gonna make mistakes. You have to learn from them and then incorporate those learnings into your business. And why I'm talking as this, you have to treat it as a business, not as a game. So you have to build your studio. Currently, that's the biggest challenge that I'm facing, that now I'm not thinking about making a new game. I'm thinking about building my studio out of whatever I've got from In My Shadow. Uh, that involves a lot of small details like financing your studio, like making a sustainable business for from the game and from all the games that you're going to be making, and building a core team, small details about the admin stuff. So now I have to put more and more focus on this and then move on to the next game. So that has been my journey so far.
Great, great. Himanshu?
Yeah, so Nakul over here and Harish has put it very well. There are challenges at every stage. There will always be challenges. For us, fortunately, Bonfire 1 and Bonfire 2 gave us enough runway to survive and sustain a team. So we are out of that challenge, but we now have new challenges. Like how can we expand? How can we take this to the next level? So we used to make premium games, and we think we have now reached a ceiling where we can only do so much with premium games. We can't go beyond that. We could hardly make 10 or 20% increase in revenue. So for us, now the challenge is how can we take it to the next level? What's the next level for us? We have to figure out what we have to build next, who we are targeting, and which market we are targeting. We could go for PC. There are so many ways that we could go for. We can go for PC, we can go for free to play mobile, but there are challenges in that as well because we always have to learn and keep learning. Also, with the free to play market, we have to balance how the monetization is going to be, since we are a premier studio from the by the core and by our design. We have not to be predatory monetization, so we have to bring a balance between both of them, and that's a real challenge for us. So yeah.
I think for both of you, Nakul and Himanshu, I think there's one more thing that would add up to this is like you've given good games. Now, now there's a bit of a pressure also to create, something better than what you did before, right? But I also want to know, what are the learnings that you have taken through all these challenges that you have gone through, and how are you approaching with a solution for your new projects or whatever you're working on right now? Can you give some insights on that?
Sure, sure. So at this stage, the biggest aim that any studio in this phase will be having is finishing a vertical slice, right? That is a polished prototype with which you can get a publishing deal. So because I have a part-time team, so what we really need to focus on is how do we get it in place in time or in some semblance of time that doesn't extend 2 years, right? So that is the problem. So how we went about tackling it is, what happens when you have a part-time team is they are too stretched thin. Sometimes they can forget about what they're working on, or they can't see the finish line and they get demotivated. So we had a clever hack wherein we thought, okay, let's make a calendar of showcaseable items that we would put out on social media, so that we will be cleverly building upon it week by week or bi-weekly. So we structured the entire production in a way that it all goes towards a social media post. So that way the team members were able to see a finish line. They were motivated to get to the finish line because it became very tangible. And they were like, okay, I can see this, I can realistically make it, and then I can know the feedback for it. So that made them work a bit more efficient, and that increased the productivity. So that is one. And after that, what we did is there's only so much we could do when we are a part-time team, right? So I was thinking, what are the other clever, unconventional ways in which we could pull some things off? So that's when I reached out to another studio in Mumbai, Uniplay Digital. I think the founder is somewhere here, Shantanu. So I was like, look, let's make a barter system deal. I have some skill sets, you have some skill sets. So how about you give me an Unreal Engine programmer? And then because we believe we have an expertise in narrative, script writing, game design, I will do that for the indie game you're having. So that way we were able to like very wonderfully bridge the gap and going about doing it. So I would say just think in terms of how to bring that productivity when there is a dilution of attention and effort, or say the individual energy. So restructuring the entire production based on the teammates' capacity, and then finding some hacks like this here and there. So that's what we did.
Very valid point. I think collaboration at this stage works really well. It can create wonders, and that is why events like these are very useful, where you actually get to meet people who are like-minded, who can understand your passion, and then you can do all sorts of collaborations that you can. Nakul, can you touch base on some of your learnings?
I'm gonna again continue on what Harish said and like build on top of it, because again he has more, the learning that he has been sharing is more real time sharing, and what I've been trying to implement the learnings I've been trying to focus on is more for the long term game. That now I have to start thinking about the long term game and not just the game that is in hand. So by that I mean that when I'm starting a new project, uh, I'm thinking of how my company or my studio can benefit from it, and how I can use that product to make more products, and not just product, but how I can sustain the business, how I can probably give salaries to my future employees, and if I want how many employees I want to have, what is the core team structure I want to have. Now more and more has to be put on there. So so basically, you have to see things from the business perspective first, and then use your creative vision to exploit some market fit, some market need there. So you have to find your market fit. So definitely, your creative skill set is your main weapon. But with just that main weapon, you cannot go very far. You have to use those weapons strategically at various places in this business of games. So that's where I feel that uh, your long-term approach really comes into place, because when I'm talking about the long-term game again, uh, I have to think about things like what is my core team structure going to be? What are going to be the strengths of my other teammates? How will that help me in securing more financial deals for my game? And what if this doesn't work out? Uh, how to tackle the challenges that I've faced and now learn from it and now improve on it. So definitely pre-production is one of the more and more important things that I'm trying to focus on right now, which I did not with making of In My Shadow. And the more time, you must have heard of this a lot from other talks as well, but you'll only learn when you make the mistake. Uh, the more time you spend on pre-production, the more you'll save time, like after the game succeeds or fails. Uh, so that's the biggest change that I've felt when I try to plan a project. And yeah, that's most of it.
I think there's a great transformation that is happening at your stage, where you were working on the game, and now you're working on the business of the games, right? Someone just I mean, I remember a line someone said that when you run a company, you basically do not work in the company but work on the company. So I think there's a great transformation that is happening at your stage, where you're actually thinking about building a sustainable business around what you're building. Himanshu, your learnings, please.
So my biggest learning is it's not just about making a game, it's also about selling it. Making a game is only the 50% part of it. And the 50% part of it, how you sell it, who you are making for, what genre are you picking. These are the important questions that you have to answer yourself. And that's where your niche stands. And if you are able to find your niche, you can target on it, you can improve on it, you can iterate on it, and you can expand on it. When you have a product that you think can go on for the long term, and if you think of it in a business, and if you're thinking it in a business way that can go on and make your company sustain for 10 years, 20 years. It's not just about one product, it's about the lines of product that you can build on top of it. You can make an IP, and that's what we did with Bonfire series, and we'll continue that IP in the future as well. I think IP gives a strong validation and strong committed user base. So leverage that. Try to create something that you can leverage for years, not just for one game, but over decades. So that's my biggest learning. My current challenges, learnings from challenges would be how can I scale it from here? How can I take it to the next level? What's next big we can do? Since we are already almost 8 to 10 people, like small team, how we can go grow from 20 people team or 30 people team over the next 5 years. That's my biggest challenge at this moment.
I think you're one of the very few studios in India who are small but thinking big in terms of creating IPs around what you're making. A lot of indies shifting from one game to another, but I've seen you sticking to a genre and literally dominating it with your efforts on it. Um, Now I'll just want you guys to tell the audience, because I I do put content on YouTube, and um, I I talk to a lot of people. A lot of people want to, once they know how to code a game in Unity, they want to start an indie studio. They want to start a company. Um,
GTA.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not wrong to be ambitious. I mean, everybody, I'm sure, wanted to make a GTA when they played it, right? But I just want you guys to give a real hard, brutal reality check on how difficult is it to run your own indie studio. Some quick pointers on all of your stages.
Sure. So just before giving the reality check, I'll add on to something Himanshu just said about finding the product market fit. So when we said we are going to make only premium games, a lot of people asked, but there's only like 15% of PC console gamers in India. Where do you want to do it? And then we said, what about outside of India? So I think the business model for premium games is outside, not just for India. No matter which country you are, 95% of sales happens outside of your home country. So that's where we targeted as a business. But coming to a reality check, what I would say is the first thing is it's a catch-22 situation. Lack of capital, without which you can't do vertical slice, and without vertical slice, you don't get a publishing deal. And it is very difficult to get to a vertical slice that is good enough to get a publishing deal. So that is like a very harsh reality because there is no financial infrastructure in India that backs premium gaming business. So that is a big harsh reality that you people need to be aware of, that if you want to enter premium games, probably you are on your own, friends and family money or your own money, because there's literally no financial institution that will back you. That is the first, and it's a harsh reality. Second thing, what I would say is publishers are extremely averse to funding a team that doesn't have prior production experience. So that means people fresh out of universities and colleges, they want them to have at least some level of experience already in a game studio. There are exceptional cases, but mostly they are averse to it. And finally, what I would say is the easiest games to make as a solo developer or as a team of small team are going to be the most difficult games to sell. The reason being, such games are oversaturated in the market, and getting a visibility on them is extremely difficult. So these are genres like 2D puzzle platformers, 2D side scrollers, sometimes even strategy games, turn-based strategy games. So anything that an indie can pull off relatively easy, it is extremely hard to sell in Steam. In fact, you can take the statistics; those are the least selling games in Steam for very many years. There are exceptions, Dead Cells, Cuphead, but there are exceptions. Can't rely on them unless you found out an USP that nobody has ever come across in that genre. So these are a couple of reality checks that I would give. So that's from my stage. That's what relevant.
Nakul, your thoughts?
He mentioned puzzle platformer, and I could totally relate to that. That's a cold reality. There are genres that won't fit your strategy, and yeah. And just before I'd like to talk about the reality again. I'd also like to add to something that Himanshu just mentioned. Uh, I talked about playing the long-term business plan, long-term game, and Himanshu mentioned about the best plan that you could think of, like working on Bonfire as an IP and leveraging that for a long time. Uh, so that's something that you will not probably think from your first game. You'll have to face some difficulties, and then you will be thinking of those things. So a very simple reality that I'd like to share is that games cost a lot of time and money to make, a lot of time and money. And you cannot do that half-heartedly. You definitely have to have some sort of a plan, a strategic plan to get your money back. You won't get your time back, but you should get your money back so that you can continue creating more games. And there are a lot of aspects of game development. just like Himanshu said, that making a game is probably half the battle, maybe not even half. Uh, the other side is the people side of games. Like you have to make business deals, you have to do all those admin tasks, you have to make your website, you have to make so many small things that when you're starting, you're gonna have to do it yourself. So if you ignore those things, it's gonna be a very hard and uphill battle for you. Uh, Making a good game won't sell itself. Like a good game would never sell itself. But if you make a good game, it will make selling easier. Not just selling, it will make everything easier for you. So definitely you have to back your strength with making a good game, but you also have to focus on other aspects equally. Maybe even more in some instances, you might be able to recall some games that are not very good looking games or very cool games, but they are doing good business because their business game is strong. They're on top of their business game. So the sooner you realize about all these things, you'll save more time. So, like even from my experience of making In My Shadow, it took me around 2.5 years, and I've made a lot of learnings from that, obviously. But one simple and very essential advice that I'd like to give to everyone is that if it's your first commercial game, you're gonna learn a lot, and you probably won't be a hit with your first commercial game. Uh, Most probably not. So it's better, easier, faster if you make a smaller game, release it fast, learn fast, and then use all those learnings in your next big game. And hold on for the next GTA or God of War or whatever. That time will also come if you play that long-term game again.
On point, Nakul. Himanshu.
Yeah, so games are super hard to make. Even at our stage, with a team of experienced people of over a decade, it's super hard, super hard. Also, selling the game is even harder. Finding your niche is extremely hard, but it's possible if you do it. And don't think of it as a sprint. It's a marathon. It will take you decades, at least a decade, to actually stand on your feet and start building a team. So don't think of it as a one game or two game plan. Think of it in the long term, like very long term. I'm talking about. It's not about just one game. As Nakul said, the first game is gonna fail. 99% is gonna fail, and that's okay. It's okay to fail. You'll have a lot of learnings. Take that learnings, build on top of it, and you will see yourself evolving, not just in your craftsmanship, but also in your selling uh, power, as in your selling technique or whatever you call it. As a business person, you will evolve. You also have to handle the business side of things. It's not just about making games. It's not just about fame and glory. There's a dark reality that there's a lot of hard work that goes behind it, a lot of sleepless nights that goes behind it. There are a lot of burnouts that I personally went through. Personally, after I went through a huge burnout after Bonfire 2 that I didn't even look at it for like 6 months. But my passion got me back. So if you have a passion for it, if you have a passion for making games, then you will definitely bounce back anyway and anyhow. And you just keep going. It's all about persistence and perseverance. Over time, you will achieve it. But yeah, it's going to take time. So be patient.
Thank you, Himanshu. Before I open up for the Q&A, just one line from all three of you guys. What's the vision?
Talk about challenges.
Collaboration again. So yeah, in terms of vision, we as a studio, as a business, we have a 5-year, 10-year timeline. In marketing, there's a term called positioning, as to what you want your market, what you want your market to think about when they hear your company name. So in Outlier Games, the vision is when people think single player games, they want to think of Outlier Games. That is a long-term vision that we have for our studio. So we don't want to be the Naughty Dog of India or the Supergiant of India. We want to be the Outlier Games of the world. Wherein when they think single player narratives in games, they want to also think about Outlier Games. So that is the business vision that we have, and hopefully we'll get there.
Great. Nakul.
My personality trait has always been like I always like to challenge what's already done. So it's almost like always like, what if you do it like this? So that's the primary reason that I want to make games and I want to continue making games, is that my games would want people to think that, okay, what if this was done, and instill that thought of creativity in them as well. And like I said, you will not be there, but your game would still be instilling that feeling in the player. That's one of the best rewarding feeling that you as a developer or a creator can ever get.
Awesome. Himanshu?
Yeah, so my vision is to create a studio, a great studio out of India, to make quality content for the global market, and to create some successful IPs like Bonfire, to take it global and maybe take it beyond any other IPs that have ever come out from the India. So that's our vision.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. Guys, if you have any questions, please raise your hands and we'll quickly take those questions.
Hi. First of all, I would like to thank you for the insightful talk. I could relate a lot because my name is Akash. I have a hybrid casual game studio based in Mumbai. And as you spoke about collaborations, I wanted to understand what exactly should be the terms of the deal that we should be placing before we sign the contract. And for example, if I give my developer to another studio and I hire the artist, so what is the terms of the deal according to the revenue if we go into publishing or if we hit a CPI on a particular project? So how do you exactly go about that?
So I guess you're talking about the publishing deals
I'm talking about the collaboration.
for the
Like,
collaboration.
yes.
Collaboration with
Sure, sure. So you're talking about the deal that I did with another indie studio, that one, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of contract and it's actually very good. You're already thinking about MOUs and contracts and all that thing. So that's a sign of a business savvy person already. So what I would say is, if possible, get a legal expert. If not, there are already a ton of online resources that you could rely on. But still, I would advise get a legal expert whenever you're doing any paperwork. But generally speaking, if you have a good relationship with the opposite guy, in my case, I already did. So that eliminated a lot of problem. But if at all you don't know the person, then getting a legal expert is always the best approach, unless you yourself are very well read with legality, legalese, and all that thing. Uh, if you can be a bit more specific, I could go into details.
If you don't mind me asking, what were the terms of the deal that you had in place with your collaboration?
So it has to deal with between us. What we think is how are we going to credit each other's work? That is the bulk of it, and then we define the scope of work, what is the time of work, and how are we going to credit each other.
So
So that is
exactly,
largely it.
that's my question exactly. Who holds the IP basically?
Okay. So there's no question of IP sharing.
Okay.
So that's a valid point. So in legal, what happens a lot of times when you join a company, let's say a game company, in your signing contract, there'll be a clause saying whatever you work on is a property of the company and not your original IP. So what it essentially means in game business is, if you're an employee somewhere, you're working on something, it's not yours. It's your employer's. In a similar way, when we do business to business dealing like that, we have a clear clause saying whatever work I do for your game, it's your property. Whatever work you do for my game, it's mine. So it's a slightly modified version of it, if you get it.